And for more Hopkinton, visit HCAM Ed.
Ready? Well, we have a quorum, so I call this meeting to order. We'll let Amy come sit down. Start reading this. Is Muriel coming, or is
she on Zoom, Ben? Muriel? Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I didn't hear that she wasn't coming, but yeah, I thought she was coming.
Okay, I call this meeting to order. This meeting of the Hopkinton Select Board is being held both in person and remotely using the video conference platform Zoom, pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Act of 2021. I believe everyone's going to be here, so all members participating in the meeting are present in the meeting room. The public has the option of attending in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted in this meeting's agenda. This meeting is being recorded. Before we get started, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hello.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
Not a problem. You're only a minute late, so I think we can have a little bit of slack there. All right, public forum. Please note that each person will have up to 2 minutes to speak at public forum. And please start by stating your name and address, recognizing that there may be people at the meeting in person and participating remotely who would like to speak. We'll go to the room first. Is there anyone present in the room who would like to speak at the public forum? Seeing none. Ben, anyone on the Zoom? All right, you want to go ahead and liven them up?
Who is it, Ben? Okay. Darlene, you're on.
It's Darlene Hayes, 1/3 Road in Hopkinton. I wanted to follow up on status of the intersection with Glover Street, the left side of Cumberland Farms, and the accidents from the discussions over the last 2 years and most recently a couple months ago. I know that there was another left T-bone accident today.
In progress.
And since I've actually sent some emails from our administrator from the police chief with details of things that they had done in the past and some other people's accidents. So just want to know where we stand on any update on that.
So, at the public forum, we usually don't do the back and forth and kind of go through updates, but
we would refer to Mr. Kamala.
Yeah, Mr. Kamala, can we do an update?
At the next meeting, maybe?
At the next meeting.
In fact, we will reach out to Darlene tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, I think that we'd all like to have the update too, actually.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for the whole public to hear.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Darlene. Anything else?
That's it. All right.
Thanks,
Great.
Darlene. Thanks, Darlene.
Thank you, Darlene. Ben, do we have anyone else with a hand raised? Nope. All right, fantastic. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. The board will consider approving the consent agenda consisting of accepting the resignation of Chelsea Rockhold from the Youth Commission, confirming the town manager's appointment of John Sheridan as traffic constable to a term expiring June 30th, 2024, and approving funding request from the Marathon Fund Committee for $2,000 to fund exercise classes at the Senior Center. Would any board members like to break any of these out?
No. No, I'm good, thank you.
No? Okay, then I'm...
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All right, we have a motion been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Next agenda item is the Net Zero Resolution Climate Action Plan. The board will hear from members of the Sustainable Green Committee about a net zero resolution. and the Climate Action Plan. Do we have a member of the Sustainable Green Committee present? We do, please.
You can bring another chair.
Come on up, grab another chair, yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming. So what do you got for us?
So in the last year, as a fairly new committee that we've established, we've gone from 0 members to 15. So we have a full committee at this point. And we also have 3 liaisons, both Mary Jo from the Select Board, we have Laura Hanson from Parks and Recs, and then we have Joe Markey from School Committee. And we've been working trying to get the committee just out there and show our presence and be active. So some of the events that we've done is last spring we had a townwide cleanup, and we did collection of electronics and furniture, and that went off with a bang with the Green Team junk removal, and they've gone on from starting in Hopkinton to expanding and doing about a dozen different towns at this point, us being one of the first ones they've done. And then we had a table in Poly Arts kind of just showing that our committee is here, and we did a piece on the art on the trail along with a town cleanup right before marathon to beautify Hopkinton. So one of the things we did as a new committee, we started by first updating our charge document, and we wanted to do an environmental update. So we want to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, save money, and reduce energy for the town by creating an environmentally strategic plan. And then Jeff is going to kind of talk about what our plan is as a committee.
Excellent.
Sure. Hello, I'm Jeff Rowland, a member of the Sustainable Green Committee. So one of our original questions was kind of what does climate change mean for Hopkinton, right? You hear a lot about the global impacts, melting glaciers, rising seas, desertification, but we're inland Massachusetts, right? So for us, we found a research paper written by UMass scientists, commissioned by the state from a few years ago, that laid out for basically every river basin in the state, roughly what the range of changes are going to be. And a lot of what you hear is average temperature rise, right? So by mid-century, we're looking at 3 to 6 degree increase, and by the end of the century, between 4 and 11 degrees average temperature increase. But what that really means is by the end of the century, we're looking at another 2 to 11 weeks more than what we have of 90 plus temperatures per year. Remembering that, any given season is 13 weeks. So it's a pretty hot summer. Our baseline has 20 weeks of below freezing temperatures every year. And by the end of the century, we're looking at 3.5 to 9 weeks less of below freezing temperatures, which can have a lot of, impacts for plants and, just the way that the town handles winter in general. So a lot of places recommend just thinking about the climate of a place about 500 miles to the south as an example of what it's going to be like in about 70 years from now. So think like Richmond, Virginia. Is roughly going to be what it feels like here, potentially. It's not great, right?
I lived in Richmond for a while. It's not great.
Not that we have anything against.
Nothing against Richmond, for the record. We're also looking at increased precipitation, up to 17% more per year. Incidences of an inch or more in a day are going to go up slightly, and these are all predictions, of course. But that's the range of impacts that we're looking at. So that kind of helps informs our decision as to what we want to do. And then another thing we've been doing is a greenhouse gas inventory. So another member of our committee has, been working with the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. Thank you. With their public databases and figuring out what is our climate impact. We've got about 211,000 tons of CO2 equivalent as of a few years ago, which is the most recent data you can actually get. These things take time to acquire. If you break that down, roughly a third is just transportation, a third is residential buildings, and a third is commercial and industrial buildings. If you look at it by fuel source, about a third is electricity, which of course comes from mixed fuels. A third is gasoline from the transportation. About a fifth is natural gas, and roughly an eighth is heating oil. So long-term, worth looking at reducing the fossil fuel usage, figuring out how to get those down more effectively, and offsetting, where possible. So next slide, please. So we've got a climate work group, kind of a subcommittee of the Sustainable Green Committee, working with Norm, John Gelsich, and Dave Del Torrio at the moment. I'm just trying to lay out our plans here. So John was very helpful and wrote a climate action white paper, which kind of lays out our next steps here. We've got that greenhouse gas inventory I mentioned, which we're still filling in some data, but we've got the big chunks filled in already. And along with that, we're going to fill out this climate action plan, which will lay out our next steps going forward. And the goal there to be to figure out and give an informed decision as far as when we can actually achieve net zero. Many towns, pick a date without having figured out all the data first and figuring out what's actually feasible. And it feels very hopeful. So with Norm's guidance, we decided to kind of flip it, and we'll do a lot of analysis first, and then be able to definitively say, yes, we think we can actually achieve these goals by a certain timeline. But if you were to look at like the federal and state levels, they've essentially committed to 50% reduction by 2030, 75% by 2040, and 100% net zero by 2050.
A long way off.
It's a long way off, and there's a lot of
work to do.
An awful lot.
A lot of issues in the meantime.
And we're still very early in our thinking of how to tackle those issues.
Right. So, one number that jumped out at me is just a 17% increase in rainfall. Mm-hmm. Is that annually? Every year it's going up another 17%, or? So
that's by the end of the century. The estimates as of this paper will be between 2 and 17% increase in rainfall. Okay. If I recall, roughly half of that increase is actually going to happen in winter. So with a warmer winter and more rainfall, that could be interesting. Right. For our great grandkids.
Were you able to take a look at the increased rainfall from this past year locally? Because I know that every storm we had was massive. Mm-hmm. And did you have any data on that?
That's not something I've looked at personally. There might be data out there. It's a good question.
So just, this is something that's near and dear to my heart, so it's something I've kind of followed along, and a lot of the reporting I saw was that just with the slight increases in temperature just causes more water vapor to be in the air, and therefore we have so much more stronger rainstorms. And we saw a lot of that worldwide, but I'm interested in how it's affecting us here in Hopkinton. Board members, any questions?
I think this is really great work, and I'm glad that you have a climate work group already going. And then, I guess it's going to be a long time, but it looks like we're going to need to work on more eventually, more air conditioning and more flood control, if we're going to get more precipitation. Does it all have a place to go and everything? But thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to tell you how encouraged I am. This is a really vibrant committee. I'm really proud and thrilled that the town is working in concert with you, and it sounds like you're getting some real traction on a very important, really difficult problem. And so I think that the public at large is going to be really interested in your work and your progress. And so I really appreciate the work that has been happening, and I look forward to supporting the future work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm the liaison to this committee, and I've been talking with Amy, and I went to a couple of their meetings. I was very happy with the furniture pickup and the cleanup and everything that you've been doing. I love hearing that you have gone so far out in your planning, and it's a very exciting committee, and I'm glad you're up to your 15 membership. Everybody's doing something different, and we're really moving forward. And I think you guys are going to put Hopkinton on the map as a forward-thinking when it comes to energy and global warming and all those things. I just think you're doing a wonderful job, and I'm very happy to be your liaison. I'm proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a couple of questions. You threw out some numbers about the projected increase in temperature range between now and the end of the century. Is there any comparison to where those temperatures were 1900 to 1999 as far as temperature increases?
So the baselines for this study were 1971 to 2000 was the baseline numbers.
I'm just curious to see if this has, I mean, obviously with everything that we have versus the generation before us and before them and before them, we have so much more technology which we're more accurately able to track things. It's more objective rather than subjective, as well as, I mean, we're just killing the earth. There's no two ways about it. Our generation is just destroying the earth. We all have to have these $15,000 phones every 8 months and throw the other ones away, and they throw the other ones away, and they wind up somewhere, and it's just it's a terrible, terrible evolution, but it is what it is. I can't live without it, so.
Reduce,
tell my
reuse,
great, tell my
recycle.
great-great-grandkids to buy some flippers, I guess. Now, are you guys running the thing this weekend, the electronics recycling?
That, I think, is St. John's?
Okay.
Is it?
All right, because I know there's another one this weekend that we have a basement full of stuff that's heading out there. So
We're happy every time we hear about one of these.
Thank you for running it, but thank you for running the last one. So that's it. Thank you.
Question on that, do we know where these components are going, and are we sure that the stream is going towards being recycled and it's not just going to be burned in some Far East Asian country for heat? In the mountainous regions.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've seen plenty of
Look at you
reports
being all
showing.
socially just, environmentally just. I like the question, though.
So for the collection that we did in the spring, I don't know exactly where all the electronics go, but for the furniture, he ends up having a select few places that will take it, and if it's not up to their quality, it ends up going to a few different lower standard places. So he brings it to Habitat for Humanity places and Salvation Army. They take a lot of the furniture that he brings.
That's awesome. Like the restores.
There's another place in Acton that stores furniture, all kinds of household goods for folks that are escaping homelessness, and they'll take almost anything. So just throw that out there. I'm happy to give you that contact information. And people who are getting housed can actually go and they shop through they're guided, and they shop through the whole storeroom. It's a massive warehouse, and fill their new home, and it's really beautiful.
If I may.
I was at the meeting that, and the fellow from Holliston who brought the trucks and picked up everything was at the meeting, and he kind of gave an excellent accounting for what was going to happen to everything that he picked up, and I was very happy to hear that, so it's good.
First off, I want to commend the Hopkinton Sustainable Green Committee for your exceptional efforts moving the mission of your committee forward, and also making sure that you embark on programs that directly benefit the community. In terms of looking ahead, I think it needs to be said that eventually a net zero resolution will be presented for consideration at town meeting, and that's been made clear to us in our conversations, and I want the select board and the public to be aware of that initiative. Regarding the last question, it is a very good question, I come from the global south, and for the most part, we bear the most burden relative to what happens to items that are recycled in the global north. What I find though inspiring is that the education that you are doing is bringing light to some of these issues that are not immediately apparent in the north. And in addition, we may not have the answer. We may not know where the electronics eventually end up. But I think the fact that you are doing this work and we're having these conversations marks some progress in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well said. And I also want to thank you for all your work and what you're doing. It means a lot to me. Like I said, it's a very personal issue for me. I look at my children and I say, what world are we leaving behind, right? With regard to recycling, you know, I just saw a number of shows frontline as to what happens with a lot of these plastics, and you know, it's shocking to learn that while I put my recycling in the recycling bin thinking I'm doing the right thing, a lot of it just doesn't make sense to recycle because it's not cost feasible. So a lot of it gets just thrown away. So that's why I bring up the question, and I think it's something that we can kind of look at as a as we're looking at sustainability. You know, I think recycling is part of it, and if half of what we recycle actually gets thrown away, it kind of defeats the purpose. But anyways, I want to thank you for your presentation and all the hard work you're doing. I know it's an uphill climb, but I think together we can get this thing done.
Thank you for having us.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great work.
All right, the COVID-19 update. Sean McAuliffe, our Public Health Director, will update the board on the town's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. McAuliffe, I understand you were shooting people up just now, huh?
40,
As a manner of
49, I think.
Wow.
I'm going to finish, end up with tonight, so.
Excellent.
And then you take the 49 and you add it to the state's report of 129 that were vaccinated before our clinic, and then the 888 we did last Thursday.
Yeah, those,
amazing.
oh, those were all Hopkinton residents, 800?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We expect from these activities, and then the residents that have taken their children out to their pediatrician, we're expecting by next Thursday that we'll be north of, easily north of 63% of the 5 to 11-year-old cohort. I think the number's actually going to be towards 70%. So
Great news.
and then we've got a, we're going to call a cleanup clinic, where we're going to take the old Westboro group. Everybody's going to donate 2 to 3 vaccinators and staff members, and we're going to host a large clinic in Ashland, where it'll be an opportunity for all of our regional residents that missed the local clinics to come and get vaccinated. And the intent is that after that clinic, we should regionally have all of our 5 to 11-year-olds in that 90-plus category. So, and they will all be in a much better place going into the Christmas holiday and the New Year. So, that's
Excellent. That's a huge relief.
yeah.
Will you run the second clinic? Like the second, do the kids get a second shot?
In 3 weeks?
Yeah, so the clinic that we ran on Thursday, that second dose clinic will be on the 3rd at the middle school from 3 to 6. We're working out a deal right now to secure some additional vaccinators. We're basically going to try to do what we did over a 6-hour period in a 3-hour period. And for those who walked through that clinic site, we'll fill in the center of the gym. So we'll go from 13 to probably 20 vaccination stations, and they ran a beautiful clinic. I mean, the guys at Fox News were, and I'm not a, for me to be, I'm probably as liberal as you can get to be with the guys from Fox News, and they're like, this is art. And I mean, a credit to Simone, Casey, and Amelia. They with the fire department, the school nurses, they did a fantastic job. And I was telling Norman, the deputy director of the DPH took the footage from Fox News and NBC and the report that NPR did, and sent it out to all of the new epidemiologists, really all the staff in Jamaica Plain, and said, this is local public health. So it was good.
I have to tell you, my mom in Indianapolis heard the NPR story where they talked about Hopkinton.
They're following us. The state of Rhode Island called us, looking for, how have you partnered with the state? How have you partnered with businesses and really just rallied the support to get our rates up? And so we've got several meetings next week. And I'm not on jury duty, so I'll be able to attend those meetings. So,
you'll miss it, right?
Yeah. So that's the vaccination update. We're doing well at the high school. We have a few opportunities in some of the elementary schools. But we, again, through this partnership that we have with our local communities, we were able to secure about 20 slots for kids that we needed to get into testing. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible for the residents throughout the region, so that if we have to send people off for testing so that we can make some quick decisions and eradicate spread, we have those, or we have that capability. So that's, we're just, as a group, we're continuing to innovate, figure out how we can better support each other so that we can, provide a higher level of service to the residents in Hopkinton and the surrounding communities. And if we're all doing well, that should provide a nice little buffer in Framingham. As a resident, I'm excited to see that Framingham has been outperforming a lot of the other communities in the region, and definitely most of the other cities in the state, so we've done well.
Good. Great. I think it's great to have that buffer and have like a region where we can feel safe. I think it's also important for everyone to know not to let the guards down, and
that would be my next point, is that we've seen significant increases in case levels up in Northborough and Southborough, from several Halloween parties. And here, what we're seeing today, we had 4 cases. We've actually identified a sizable cluster in a classroom, and most of that was related to an outside event or an event outside of school. And so it's important to remain vigilant. We're still averaging right now we're at about 2.54 cases a day. So our positivity rate's north of, or it's at 1.85. We've been basically in this static position, slightly improving by 0.3 or so in all of our metrics each week. We're looking to figure out how we can drive those numbers below, our positivity rate definitely below 1. And that's the challenge going into the holidays, going into the cold weather. It's respiratory illness season. But with our vaccination rates, with people practicing better hygiene and really working together I was joking downstairs that parents are calling us, just to make sure. And that it's that level of attention to their child's health and their own activities that is really contributing to the success that we're seeing in the high school. And as they said on NPR, Hopkinton is a model that everybody's going to be looking at and trying to figure out how to follow. So, kudos.
That's awesome. I love being a model.
I was just going to say congratulations,
Yes,
but also
yeah.
thank you. This community really appreciates the way that they have been served by the first responders during this crisis and by the Department of Public Health.
And everybody stepped up. So it's everybody's pulling their own weight.
That's awesome, and we appreciate
Jane
it.
continues to be a rock star in vaccinating. One of the firefighters,
Right.
whiz. I give all of them that volunteered credit. And then I should also note that we have all of our nursing interns come in from Worcester State now, and we had 6 nursing interns from Worcester State. We have nursing interns lined up to work with Simone and Casey for the rest of the year, or actually the next year. So
That's really
we're
good
just in
news.
a good.
That's
a good
great to
spot.
hear.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate everything.
When I came in tonight, all those people downstairs, there were quite a lot of people, and there were a lot of children. Now, were the children getting vaccinated?
Yes.
And I just want to say thank you to all the parents out
Yeah.
there who see to it that their children get vaccinated so that we can have a safer community. It's nice to see the whole families coming like that.
Child 1 tonight, first comment, where's my lollipop? Where's the candy? And I was like, oh wait, and I had 1,000, I had 1,100 lollipops in the car. So,
Awesome job.
But they're all, everybody's stepping up to do their part. So it just makes my job easier. And again, it's what we endeavor to do in the department is, lift everybody up. So, so thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate everything you're doing, and it takes leadership for everybody to step up, and I appreciate your leadership in this. It's been critical. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Potential 2022 annual town meeting articles. Select Board will discuss 2 potential annual town meeting articles, which it may sponsor. The first is a set of housekeeping amendments to the general bylaws to make them gender neutral, and the second is the acceptance of an easement at the corner of West Main Street and Oakhurst Street for a school bus stop. Board members, do you have any questions regarding these proposed articles?
But I think the gender neutral change is great. It looks like mostly changing the word chairman to chair, which seems appropriate and is sort of there. So I think that's great that we put that together. I don't know if maybe we should have a little introduction about the bus stop, in case people, I'm not too familiar with that.
I'm not very familiar either. I just want to weigh in and say thank you. It's important work to make our documents, our public documents, gender neutral, and also it's a thankless task to go through them. So I really appreciate, I'm looking at you because I assume that you did these for us, Elaine, and I appreciate that. It's really great work, and I appreciate the initiative and the effort. So.
There'll also be a companion piece for the zoning bylaw as well.
Great.
Excellent. So I guess I'm also looking at you for a summary on the bus stop.
So I can explain where that comes from. There's a house being built at the corner there, which went to the Board of Appeals for some setback relief. And during the discussion, people on Oakhurst Road raised the issue of being a safe place for kids to wait for the bus there. They've never had that, and they really would like that. So in this discussion, the board asked the applicant if they'd be willing to donate the easement, and they agreed to.
Great.
Okay.
And that's right on West Main, right? Yeah, so that's amazing.
That's great. Yeah.
I want to thank the landowners for generously giving us the easement for the school bus.
Agreed.
Brendan? No, all set. Okay.
If I may,
please.
The message is, if the board members have any suggestions for zoning, for general bylaw changes, speak now.
I thought they were
The coming meetings, we will be asking for additional suggestions.
Okay. Well, I think coming up with suggestions right now is a little difficult, but we will have those. I think we're all on notice that if we have any ideas, to bring them to the next meeting.
I love giving homework to board members.
Sorry?
I enjoy giving homework.
Yeah, I'm getting a little over that, I'm just saying.
All right. So board members, if we have any other ideas, please jot them down and bring them to the future board meetings so we can...
I couldn't think of any, so, I mean, it may not be any others.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure, knowing that I have this homework, I'll come up with
If we
something.
do, we'll think of them sooner rather than later.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we wanted to start this process very early in the
yeah.
So that come January 1, when the warrant opens, we've already discussed the topics publicly.
Are the general bylaws easy to find on the select board site? Is that where they are?
Oh, well, they're on the documents.
The town clerk page, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right. Well, if we have no other questions there, then that brings us to the town manager report. Mr. Kamalu.
Yeah. In your packet, we included the town manager's report, Main Street Corridor project update, based on the reports I'm receiving from Dave and Michelle. The contractor, as I said last week, is now focusing on winding down construction ahead of the winter. They have received some relief from the Director of Public Works, allowing the construction to continue beyond November 15th. And all of this will be weather dependent. On the FY23 budget update, we have begun the discussions with the department heads on their submissions. What is very interesting this year is the level of detail that we have received linking the department budgets to the town strategic objectives. We will be sharing this information publicly when we put together the budget submission. In addition, we are continuing our regular meetings with our counterparts from the school department. And this week we, in response to the observations made at the last board meeting, scheduled the budget advisory group meeting for this coming Thursday. And then finally, as you know, tonight you'll be conducting the tax classification hearing. Based on the decisions made tonight, we may be coming back to the board with additional information on how your decisions tonight affect the budgets going forward.
Great.
On the municipal water supply PFAS update, as I indicated in my report to the board, we are now officially in violation. There are several steps that the town will need to take, and tonight with us is John Westerling. One of the, I think the key decision points relates to our short-term temporary intervention. There are several options that we're looking into. In my report, I also did outline the long-term solution that we're currently working on, simultaneously with what we're doing relative to the short-term solutions. John.
Thank you. Through the chair, good evening. On November 9th, we received notice of non-compliance, as the town manager just stated. We are one of 60 communities in the state that are dealing with PFAS above the maximum contaminant level. Consequently, this triggers the following actions. A, public notification. The town has drafted the draft public notice for review by Mass DEP, following which the notice will be distributed by mail to all customers by December 9th, 2021. We have 30 days to comply. Additional distribution methods will include posting the notice on our web pages, social media pages, and by an insert in the Hopkinton Independent so that we get all of our customers and everyone who consumes water. Within 10 days after the distribution, the town will submit a copy of the completed public notice and public notice certification as required to Mass DEP and the Board of Health, and we will continue to update and redistribute the public notice every 3 months so long as we continue to be above the maximum contaminant level. B, monitoring. As long as the source remains in active status, the maximum contaminant level violation triggers monthly monitoring for PFAS at the Fruit Street pump station locations. C, violation and corrective action plan. Massachusetts DEP's formal notice of noncompliance requires the town to formulate and submit plans for interim actions and long-term corrective actions to reduce the PFAS levels below the maximum contaminant level within 30 days of the date of the notice of noncompliance. The town is evaluating the following interim plans, and I have to state that all of the interim and long-term plans that we are formulating and developing and choosing all will have an impact on the water rate structure as we move forward, because these are costly options. The first one that we are evaluating is offering a credit off of the water bills to customers in the sensitive subgroups. And remember, the sensitive subgroups include pregnant and nursing women, infants, and people diagnosed by the healthcare provider to have a compromised immune system. We are also looking at the possibility of installing a water distribution kiosk at a town property that dispenses water that is below the maximum contaminant level for PFAS. We're also looking at installing a temporary filtration system at well number 6 that will filter the water to a level below the maximum contaminant level for PFAS before it enters the distribution system. All of these have pros and cons associated with them. All of these have costs associated with them. So we are evaluating those options, and we will present the best option for the community. Our long-term corrective actions include either constructing a permanent filtration system or an indirect interconnection to the MWRA water supply through the town of Southborough. And I have to say that I was pleased to hear the other night when I was here that one of the board's goals is to develop a sustainable water supply for the community for the future. So I appreciate that support from the board. Finally, we have updated our website with additional PFAS information and also the questions and answers from the public informational meeting at which the DEP joined us and answered a lot of questions live for folks. And that's our update.
Thank you. Board members, any questions?
I had a few questions. I assume you were doing this, but about keeping equity in mind when we're notifying people. Are we sending the posting documents in other languages or sending them in other languages? People who have, vision issues, are they available in large print? It's a really important notice for everybody to receive, so I just want to make sure it's accessible to everyone. And then I think the same thing for if we do the water distribution kiosk somewhere, I would hope that it would be open a variety of hours, not just, like with our recycle centers only open, I think from 9 to 2 on Saturdays, which does not work for everybody, and it's really important that people that need the clean water can get it, so I'd hope I'd have more variety of hours that would meet most people's needs.
Thank you.
Really excellent points. Thank you, Amy. I want to thank you for your efforts to keep the public really informed. I know this is a challenging circumstance. I wonder if you are, how you are determining between option 1, 2, and 3 for the interim plans. What is the process or what goes into that?
We will break that process into 3 components. The first component will be the technical review, which is what we're doing now,
yeah,
where we will use standard measures of comparing options. We will then identify key stakeholders at board level have a conversation with them, get their input on the analysis that we've generated through the first phase. And then finally, we will have a town-wide public discussion on the preferred option.
Perfect. On a selected option with information about all the options in the process?
Correct.
Thank you.
In other words, we will be explaining, here's the decision,
Yep.
and here's how we arrived at the
Yep.
decision.
Yep. I really appreciate that.
I neglected to say thank you for the public forum and the FAQs, because I've shared that with many people that missed that, and I think they're very helpful.
Thank you.
Mary Jo?
Well, I'm getting a lot of questions from the public. There's some panic out there. I noticed too when I went to the grocery store, some people are coming in and just buying carts of water, so I don't know where they're going or what they're doing, but, you know, and I understand the list of, you know, pregnant women and things like that, but people want to be, they want to be very specific and very simple as to what they should and shouldn't be doing. Like, should we just shower and not drink it, or should we do this and that? And they want real concrete daily things to go by. They're confused from what I can see of my neighbors. They're knocking on my door and they're going, what should I do? What should I do? And, you know, I'm saying, well, I'm not really doing much of anything yet because I don't have these conditions, but, or maybe you should just, you know, buy water to drink and use your water for showering and doing dishes and all that kind of thing. Or what, I mean, they want really concrete daily things. They want to know exactly what they should be doing and shouldn't be doing, and I don't know what to tell them.
Through the chair, I would refer folks, and I'll reemphasize this on our website, but I would refer folks to the initial mailing that was put out,
Right.
and that was required language that was formulated by the Department of Environmental Protection. And it's very clear that if you are either pregnant or nursing, if you're a woman who's pregnant or nursing, if you have infants below the age of 1 year old, or if you are someone who's been diagnosed by your healthcare provider to have a compromised immune system, you should not be drinking the water.
Diagnosed with what?
Compromised immune system.
Okay.
You should not be drinking the water. You should not be cooking with it foods that absorb the water, like vegetables or pasta. But if you're not in any of those categories, you may feel free to drink the water at your will. There, according to the Department of Environmental Protection, there's no threat, no risk to folks to either drinking with it, cooking with it, showering with it, brushing your teeth with it, or anything.
Okay.
John, I have just a couple
Thanks, John.
of quick questions. With our attempt to remedy this issue, does it open the town up for availability of federal reimbursement for any of the costs that would be associated with the town?
Through the chair, there are grants out there that the rounds of grant monies that were available are behind us. But according to DEP and Mary Jude Pigsley, who's the director of the Central Regional, they are looking for additional monies that would be available, and we will take every advantage of any monies that come available.
Good. And as of the 11/9, what was our present level versus our present level of PFAS? I know it's parts per trillion. Versus what the federal maximum allowable is.
Yeah, through the chair, it was some 28.4 parts per trillion, and the federal health guideline from the EPA is 70 parts per trillion.
Okay, so that, I was trying to kind of roundabout get to that although, and this is obviously, this increase in PFAS has nothing to do with you, it's not your fault. I appreciate your hard work to remedy it and to be transparent, let the townspeople know that. It's not an easy thing to do. Like Mary Jo said, it will, anytime something like this comes out, it will trigger hysteria. But it should be known that, yes, we are 28.4, which is higher than what the state allowable is, but the federal maximum allowable is 70 plus. So it's not like we're in Flint, Michigan drinking their water. So say we go to like a town a safe water distribution system where we're giving water, which will then have the town be using less, obviously be using less water. As we use less water, will that allow our filtration system to work a little bit better, to potentially maybe draw more from well 6 versus the other ones, and that getting that levels down.
So through the chair, well number 6 is our highest producing well. If we were to shut that down, we wouldn't be able to supply half of the town's water needs. If we install a water kiosk, is that what you were referring to, a kiosk?
No, I'm saying if the town uses, say we use, just throwing silly numbers out there, 1 billion gallons a day, and now with this PFAS issue, now we're giving water not from our wells to the townspeople. Thus, now we'll go down to 750, let's say 750 million gallons. So now the filtration system only has to pull 750,000 versus a million. Will that allow the more concisely filtrated wells to put more concentrated of highly filtered water into the system versus drawing, say, 1 through 7?
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the clarification. The water that's coming out of the Fruit Street facility is a combination of wells 1, 2, and 6. Unfortunately, what we were anticipating, and this was based on a conversation with DEP, was that after the summer, when we were pumping well number 6 at its maximum daily, that the well would be able to regenerate and we wouldn't be drawing as much water, and perhaps if there's a source of PFAS out there that we wouldn't be drawing that in. That unfortunately was not the case. We saw our numbers go from 20 to 24 to 28. And that's not a dramatic increase, but it is an increase. So our ability to provide water out of well number 6 that meets the MCL, we're just not there. And regardless of, unless we put a temporary filtration system on that well number 6, we're not going to be able to reach water levels below the maximum contaminant level. And as I stated earlier, the interim solutions and the long-term solutions, one of the interim solutions that we were looking at was the installation of a rental filtration system that you could put on the well. And we thought that was a wonderful idea. But it's a $170,000 initial installation, and it's $200,000 a year worth of rental fees and filter media. So that's part of the analysis that we'll be doing, is the cost-benefit analysis of what all of our options are.
Thank you.
So when we're talking about filtration, and we're talking about people worried about what can they drink, is a Brita filter going to take care of the PFAS coming out of the tap? Would a carbon filter, a typical carbon filter, take care of this? Is this something that people could use in the interim?
Through the chair, Mary Jude Pigsley, Central Mass DEP Director, was very clear that there are no filters out there that will filter water below or at the 20 parts per trillion.
Okay.
We are over that level, so any filter that anyone puts on their faucet or under their sink will not reach that level of 20 parts per trillion. Mm-hmm. And it's important for folks that if they read something that says that the filter will remove PFAS, there are hundreds of PFAS chemicals. There's only 6 that are regulated by the DEP. So be careful, because if they say it removes PFAS, it may be one of those other 100 that isn't one of the 6 that's being regulated. Mm-hmm. There's also the National Science Foundation, or the NSF, and they certify filters. So it's very important that if you're looking at a filter that you check those statistics. But bear in mind, the DEP is telling us that you can't filter out PFAS with any home domestic systems.
Okay. And is PFAS a carcinogen? Like, what is the health risk?
I would, through the chair, I would refer back, and I can pull it up in just a moment, but there are health risks associated with PFAS, and if you bear with me 1 second, I can pull up what that language is. Bear with me 1 moment. Happy to entertain any other questions while I'm pulling up our website.
What you go ahead.
John, and to be clear, I believe I heard you say, and I want everyone to understand at home, boiling water does not dissipate the PFAS levels.
It could make
Correct.
it worse, I believe.
Through the chair, that actually makes it worse, because you're boiling off the water and you're concentrating the PFAS within it.
But if you distilled it...
I was just going to say, if you distilled it...
There's been a lot of chatter on Facebook and online about the reverse osmosis filters that you can buy, and people are thinking these do remove the PFAS, even though I pointed to the what the Mass DEP said. And I guess a worry too with the reverse osmosis filter is that I think it was that they take 2 gallons of water and you produce 1 gallon of water that is filtered. So it's using a lot more water than you would normally use, which could be a problem too.
Through the chair, I did find that some people, and this is from DEP's language, and this was part of the mailing that went out initially, some people who drink water containing PFAS-6 in excess of the maximum contaminant level may experience certain adverse effects. These could include effects on the liver, blood, immune system, thyroid, and fetal development. These PFAS-6 may also elevate the risk of certain cancers. And there are links on our website if folks are interested in more information that would help them to gather that information.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. How many wells do we have in town?
Through the chair, we have 8.
8. And it's well 6 in which we have this problem. But well 6 provides the water for most of the town?
Through the chair, the well number 6 is our greatest producing well, and it produces about half of our daily demand.
Is there any way to let people know what well they're getting water from? And that would cut down a lot of the anxiety for people who are in other places who aren't getting it from 6.
Through the chair, DEP looks at it as once the water enters the system, it's within the system. What we're seeing is that as soon as the water leaves well 6 and it's combined with wells 1 and 2, it's dropping by 50%, the PFAS levels. So once it's in the system, we haven't tested out in the system, and DEP doesn't encourage that. Hydraulically, approximately, there's a break line in town, but the problem is that once it gets into the system, it's everywhere. It becomes one. In all of our wells, all 8 wells are combined with water that we also purchase from the town of Ashland. And only one of those 8 wells in the town of Ashland water have elevated levels. So unfortunately, DEP doesn't allow us to go out and test in the system to find out where it's below the 20 and where it's above, because it's in the system. And that's how they regulate the water supply. We would love to be able to go out and test the tanks, for example, and say that the water coming out of these tanks is below the PFAS levels. Unfortunately, the DEP doesn't allow that.
But from like a consumer point of view, is my water safe because I'm not getting it from wells, from the mixed water at the Fruit Street facility? Is there, as we're talking to our, Hopkinton residents, is there anything that we understand that we need to deal with the whole system, but if you're in a certain part of town, is it conceivable that your water might be better than in another part of town?
Through the chair, it's conceivable, but I don't have any statistics to be able to point to where is it above 20, where is it below 20.
Okay. Well, thank you. I know it's difficult to come here and present the bad news, but it is what it is, and we have to deal with it, and I think we'll all work together to resolve this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Chair, at your last meeting, there was a question asked about the process for filling vacancies in elected offices. We provided 4 buckets. First bucket, town moderator. Select board can make an appointment if there's a vacancy. Select board, only through a special election. Town clerk, board may appoint the assistant town clerk. And then for other elected boards, planning board, board of health, board of assessors, board of library trustees, park and rec, board of cemetery commission, housing authority, commissioners of trust funds, those vacancies are filled through the process that we have all experienced, where the remaining members of the board together with the select board make the appointment.
Go ahead.
And we also included in the packet the staff level SOP that we put together for filling such vacancies.
Yes. So we have 3 elected vacancies right now. The town moderator, we were notified about last week, so will a notice be going out then this week? Or how to apply then?
Yes, you're actually preempting the next phase. The next
Okay.
phase, I was going to ask the board to take actions on specific vacancies that have been identified, including the town moderator.
Okay, great.
Great. Well,
So that's what we're looking for. Town moderator, Board of Library Trustees,
And Cemetery Commission.
and Cemetery Commission. We are seeking authorization from the board to announce those vacancies.
I would make a motion to announce the 3 vacancies and information on how to apply.
Second.
I notice the town clerk is here too, in case he may have additional comments through the chair.
it is 7 o'clock and we have a public hearing. We just open the public hearing and pause it and continue? Okay, so I call the public hearing to order. We're going to pause it and just continue this. So, come on up.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Quick note with that. So yes, you're all set to go ahead and post for moderator and for library board because we have resignations in. We had announcements from the boards and obviously the moderator, you don't need that. We have yet to have an announcement from the Cemetery Commission, but I am working with them to make sure that we can get that all squared out. So after we get that announcement, then we'll be able to go ahead and get the official posting out, but this action should be sufficient to go ahead and the moment we get that clearance, just go ahead and post it.
Great.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So we have a motion that's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. All right. Next agenda item, the tax classification hearing. We've already called the meeting to order. This public hearing is for the purpose of determining the percentage of local tax levy to be borne by each class of real and personal property in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 56. First, we will hear an introduction and explanation, then board member questions, and then we will open it up for public input. Now, let me say at the outset, we appreciate the work of the Board of Assessors throughout the year and for getting us to this point this evening. Thank you for your hard work. Mr. O'Leary.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, members. First, I'd like to also recognize the Board of Assessors, Leslie Ficari, Guna Mehdi, and Adam Monroe, who's right here with us tonight. The other 2 members are continuing work on exemptions and abatements, and they have received this briefing, and they've decided to stay in there, continuing their work. So I really want to thank them for their advice in preparing this and all their support throughout this event. Tonight we're going to consider and answer 4 questions about whether to weight the tax impact differently by ownership and category criteria. And based on those answers, we'll ask you to approve and sign the state tax classification form. So there's a memo describing the issues in your packet on page 31. And if we can get the slide deck up and go to slide 2, I will jump right into the first question. That's it. Slide 2, question 1. The question 1 shows that the town has an opportunity to implement a split tax rate. And under a split tax rate, commercial, industrial, and business personal property pay at a different rate, a bigger share than the residential category does. This has not been done in the town in the past, and the memo covers kind of the background that the math is with a 83–85% residential, you really would have to have a dramatic increase in the other classes of property to provide any relief to residential. The town has not moved down this path in the past. I'm happy to answer any questions about this option, or we can move on to the next question.
Board members, any questions?
No questions. It was...
No questions.
Okay, great. The next slide, slide 3, talks about 2 of the questions. Question 2 says that certain property can be taxed as open space and the select board has an option to tax open space at a lower rate. The town has never done that in the past, and coincidentally, right now, we have no open space. So if you did it in a gesture of generosity, it wouldn't impact anybody. It's not something we've done before. We had some land classified as open space 2 years ago. It's been converted to other uses and is no longer open space. And again, has not been done in the past. Any questions on this aspect of it?
So this would be a private property owner that owns a large parcel, and they would be willing to classify it as open space?
Yes.
And there would be some kind of a restriction on the property that would leave it as open space?
You know, and I'm not a professional assessor, and you happen to have one here, but that, I believe that's a correct summary.
Very state restricted. It's not like a chapter. Most people decide to put their land into chapter because it's very difficult to change it once it's in open space. Mm-hmm. That is what the state classifies it as, and that is what it's going to stay. So nobody really wants to do that because they want to sell it, they want to build on it, they want to keep it open. So many people, for their open space option, go into chapters.
Yeah, so chapter
there's a recreation
61,
chapter, there's
agricultural,
agriculture, and there's one other.
Horticulture. Forestry?
I don't know. I thought it was.
Isn't there like a
There's three
There's three.
aviary or something like that?
But for the open space, we have none, so the question would be, would you like to do an open space discount? And
Well, I mean, it seems like a moot point if there is no open space.
It is,
then-
but you're required to answer.
Okay.
You have to vote on the question.
I'm actually fine skipping that open space discount.
Okay.
That's right. It doesn't mean you're not for open space.
Right.
So the next question is the option of implementing a residential exemption, and that would exempt some base amount of every primary residence. This is an exemption entirely within the residential class. So you look just at the residential class, you exempt the base amount, and then anyone who has property with taxable value above the base amount pays a levy based on only that superior amount, that above the level amount. So the tax rate becomes higher, but a lesser amount is taxed, and it redistributes who pays. It shifts the burden to rental properties and to second homes. So it's done in a few communities, some on the Cape, or some with lots of rental housing. It has not been done here in the past.
It's for communities like Nantucket that have huge summer homes, millions of dollars. It's for their full-term residents with smaller incomes, et cetera, get a break. But the more expensive homes are taxed more.
Are taxed to make it up.
They split the rate between the residents.
Board members, any questions? So this is similar to like the big cities where...
Yeah, Boston is one of the cities. So it's all either cities with a lot of rental housing where there's a desire to shift that tax burden to landlords who then may pass it on to tenants, or places that are bedroom communities, mostly on the Cape, maybe a few in the Berkshires, and push a lot of tax to the second homes.
So we do have some rental properties in town. What would the impact be on the average homeowner?
So the impact could be that it would depend on how the landlords behaved, if they absorb the cost or if they pass the cost through. And of course, the rental property serves generally the less affluent segments of our population. So it could be that you would be actually shifting some burden to the less affluent. This is really a topic that has not been considered and discussed here much in the past, and it's something that might merit discussion and consideration in the future, but I think it would need a lot more staff work and maybe a work session for you to discuss it. My sense is this board would really want to understand who the winners would be and who the losers would be, and it's a mixed bag right now.
Okay.
So I just have a follow-up question to that. What intrigues me about it, and I totally agree that it would take more thought and understanding, but whether or not there was an opportunity in there to relieve some of the pressure on our less affluent residents, right? If there's an opportunity that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am, through the chair, there could be an opportunity, and you'd want to do the Hippocratic Oath test on it first, and
Yeah.
make sure you're not serving one group of people
Yeah.
who need relief and hurting another group, so.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's something finance would be happy to do a close look at over the coming year and develop a analysis of how it would impact different segments of the housing market.
Well, not that I'm super eager to give you more work, but I am intrigued by that. So if it's possible to do some of the groundwork to understand the possibilities, I think that information is power.
Mr. Chairman, members, we would be happy to do that, and this is my first time presenting the classification hearing, and we bundle all these questions together with some other things that are on a pretty tight timeline, and what it makes me think is maybe some of the questions should be considered earlier in the process, and I'll work with the town manager on that to think about those options.
Oh, when I suggest that, just to be clear, I don't mean for this year.
Right.
I'm interested, I mean, I've done this tax classification hearings before.
Right.
It's the first time I've ever heard of it, and it's just, information is power. Let's find out what it really could mean.
All right.
Well,
Mary Jo?
this is clarification. We kind of have looked at this in the past over the years, and our people who aren't paying as much taxes because they have a lower income, or they're getting tax exemptions, or they are working on the programs that reduce their taxes, and to put quite a bit more on the people who are paying huge tax bills didn't seem to be any fairer than the classification between the commercial and the residential. Because to take a few cents off of one, you have to add much more to the other to come out with your bottom line.
I feel remiss that I don't have really good data to share with you that would show the sensitivity of different levels and how it would impact different people. It is going to be a project, but it would be a fun project and an interesting project, and it's something we'd be happy to take on in the coming months.
Enjoy that. They'll see you next year.
We might have a new assessor by then, so they can do it.
So, slide 4, please. The next question is for a small commercial exemption. So this again is an exemption that takes place only within the commercial class, and there's an opportunity to relieve some burden on businesses that have fewer than 10 or fewer employees. And if you have 11 or more, you would pick up that whatever is offered in relief in those small businesses. So the state has a certification process. If people don't go through that, the Board of Assessors locally can do an ad hoc process to qualify people. Again, it would be shifting within the commercial, which is our smallest category of property. We have $179 million in commercial property, so it would be shifting some burden to the larger players in that space. And this is not something that the town has done in the past.
Any questions?
The list of businesses we have with the right percentage of 10 or fewer people is given to us by the state.
Yes, ma'am.
It's done by them, and it's given to us by them. And it's never been that many, actually.
Right, and I hadn't seen the list, so I read the law, and the law also says that if a business is not on the list and they think they should qualify because they didn't get captured in the state mill, the local Board of Assessors can certify as well. So there'd be 2 bites at the apple, but a business with 12 people is not a very big business, and you'd be shifting tax burden from somebody with 9 employees to 12 employees. And then we'd want to understand if there's a $300 million warehouse full of expensive stuff with 4 people working there too. We wouldn't want to, I guess that would be could be an industrial, could be a commercial. So we'd really want to understand that if we were going to do that, I think.
Okay.
So I'd like to move on to slide 5, please. This is I guess the money slide, the big slide. So the headline news today is that our valuation is up 7.7% to $4.85 billion, which is, we keep edging closer to $5 billion. You can see from the slide that average single-family homes and condos are both up, and that's partly from appreciation, but it's also partly because new construction tends to be more expensive than the average. If you look at those average numbers, the newly built condos are more than $497 typically, and the newly built houses mostly are more than the $681. So it's like adding tall kids to a basketball team and then measuring the average height. You know, so the average has gone up from value and because we're adding on the high end of the spectrum there. New growth has been computed to deliver, and this was a big news item for us, $3.4 million in new tax revenue in the new year. And I need to tell you a little bit about that. That's much higher than we had budgeted and planned for, and it's entirely driven by Eversource at Wilson Street in the renewal. And if you'll recall, in the budget hearings last year, I came in and said I wanted to spend $70,000 on a court-ready appraisal for the renovation work that was going on at Eversource on Wilson Street, and the board approved it and town meeting approved it, and we hired that appraiser, and that appraiser squeaked in under the line with an interim report which allowed us to identify $87 million in new growth value in business personal property at the Eversource facility, 44% of all our new growth. So 3 weeks ago, we didn't know if new growth was going to be below the $2 million target or above it. And we knew a lot was going on at Eversource, but not everything that happens scores as new growth. Some things are just increases in value, which don't raise the tax levy. The work we had done by Sanssouci Engineering identified this $87 million increase in new growth, and it was a significant change for us. You'll see later in another slide that Eversource has now vaulted to being our #1 taxpayer. Their tax bill is going from about $3 million to about $5 million. So the good news is that we spent a significant amount of money, many times my personal tax bill, to get this assessment, and we got information which is allowing us to deliver tax bills that are fair to everyone and that capture the value that was raised at Eversource. The bad news is Eversource is our most appeal-prone taxpayer. 93% of all the pending litigation we have at the Appellate Tax Board is with Eversource. So it's kind of like winning we don't need a metaphor for that. I'll just, so it's not like having the money in hand. So we're closely evaluating how to adjust the overlay account because appeals seem very likely. They have been appealing things that are very straightforward. They have been appealing settled matters that have been settled by courts and exercising their right to relitigate those matters. So based on that, we've consulted closely with the Board of Assessors, the town manager, and my team and myself, and we plan to increase the overlay contribution, which had been $500,000, mainly for Eversource, to $1.5 million this year, because their tax bill is going from $3 million to $5 million. We do not want to be in a position where we book that money as if we're going to get every penny immediately, spend it, and then have to go to the taxpayers if Eversource wins an appeal of their tax rate. So the good news is a lot more tax revenue. The bad news is we're going to have to bank some of it to make sure we can sustain these appeals. As the board knows, property tax covers 83% of our general fund expenditures. So these property tax issues are enormously consequential to the financial health of the town. We are still projecting an average 2.8% tax impact on existing properties. We're going to raise more than that because the new growth is going to generate more money. 2.31% of that impact, if you'll recall, was related to our 2.5 tax levy, and then voters voted to add another 0.56% for several school and other construction projects, police station roof, that were excluded from the levy. So that is where we stand from those numbers. If you can go to slide 6, this will show how the values changed. And again, for example, if you look at residential, that 6%, that doesn't mean anybody's house went up 6%. That's a combination of the value growth and the new growth combined together. Winds up at about 6%. And again, you see that very consequential number from personal property on Eversource. I will also add that this project on Wilson Street is midstream, so we expect to see another number, and I don't know if it will be this big next year, but it will be a very significant additional number next year, which will give us yet more tax levy and probably yet more litigation. So it seems like our efforts to tax that property fully and fairly will result in a lot of discussions over the coming years, rather than just receiving a check in the mail, I would say. If you can go to slide 7, this slide shows the reordered list of our top 10 taxpayers, with Eversource vaulting ahead of our excellent community partner, Dell EMC Corporation. So, you know, good news, bad news. There's a little bit of good news with this, in that bond rating agencies really look at the mobility of your top taxpayers and what their ability is to leave. And for better or worse, Eversource has a substantial footprint in our town, and it would be difficult for them to pick it up and take it somewhere else. So while we are now facing Eversource as our #1 taxpayer, they are also facing us. So the bond agencies will like that news, that we have a utility as our large taxpayer that is pretty locked in. Slide 8, please, and we're almost done. So the final news is that the residential tax rate is dropping from 1708 to 1702, and the commercial and industrial from 1707 to, oh, I did it backwards. So the commercial and industrial is going to drop from 1708 to 1703. Which one's going to be the lower one? The residential is going to be the higher. So residential is going to be 1703, coming down from 1708. And the commercial's coming down a penny also. And that's from what you did last week, granting that senior exemption that results in the residential class absorbing a little bit of money to support those moderate or those limited income seniors that were approved for the exemption. And all this is still subject to approval by DLS, but we feel quite good about the numbers. If you can go to the final slide, there are the 4 things that you're asked to vote on. And there are...
The 6th is the single or split tax rate. We didn't talk about that.
The 6th is vote for the approve the LA5. So it's residential factor. 5 and 1 are the same. It's the residential factor and the split rate. That would be a split rate, would be having a residential factor.
And the LA5?
So you can vote 2 through 6. 1 and 5 are duplicates.
All right.
I guess they didn't all fit on my screen when I was word processing it.
Okay.
So it would be a motion to either to not do or do those first 4 things, and then if you vote to approve, based on those things, we will provide you with an LA5 to submit to the state that would set the tax rate at the 1702 level that we talked about.
And that has to be signed tonight?
That has to be signed tonight, yes, sir.
Excellent. Any questions from the board? I think we've well kind of done that. So I'm going to open this up to the public. Is there anyone in, well, I don't see anyone in the room here, but Ben, do you see anyone with their hand raised? Okay, then I guess I will request a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Want me to read the motion? Yeah. Okay. So I would move to not implement an open space discount for 2022.
Do you have a second?
Second.
If I may,
the board may consider making the motion in the positive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move them, sorry. So I'll withdraw that motion, and I move to implement an open space discount for 2022.
So now,
I think we want to
Then we
not
can vote
implement.
no if we want, right?
so
We voted down,
You voted down.
Okay.
and then you're no.
These are four options that the town has never embraced before.
Right.
Right, so I wouldn't want to
So
implement.
in order to
nor
stay in
am I
lockstep
suggesting-
with our historical vote, we would vote these next four down.
To not
Right,
implement.
right.
But if there's any board members that want
To change
do it,
that.
then they're welcome to speak up
Yeah.
and vote for it.
That's correct.
Right,
Okay, so we have a motion.
in the affirmative.
In the affirmative. Has it been seconded?
Second?
Okay, we have a motion's been seconded. All in favor?
No.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Or no, nay?
Yeah.
So you guys are not opposed to it?
But do we say aye when we're,
Yeah, I would say aye, yeah.
okay, I'm opposed. I'll be clear.
Okay,
So it was 5 opposed, right?
5 opposed, yeah.
Yeah, 5 opposed.
Can we lump the 2 to 5 together?
Can we do them together, or do we have to do them all?
We've been advised to do these individually.
Okay, so I move to implement a residential exemption for 20.
To not implement?
So we're making affirmative motions?
Oh, and you're voting no.
Voting them down?
No.
But don't we need to vote? Okay, yeah, so if we,
Why don't we just make the motion not to implement?
Because we're attempting to make affirmative motions, is what is happening.
Yeah.
So when you vote yes, it means yes, and when you vote no, it means no instead of...
Got it.
okay.
Okay, so I would move to, this is number 3 now. I move to implement a residential exemption for 2022.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion that's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that is also voted down.
Okay, I move to implement a small commercial exemption for 2022.
Second?
Motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? All opposed? Aye.
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 So that fails as well.
Okay, and then I move to, in this one we do insert, not in the negative. So I move to implement a single tax rate for 2022.
Second.
Motion's been seconded.
Can there be discussion on this?
Yep.
So historically, we have voted to go a single tax
Right.
rate. So if we want to have a single tax rate, then this is the one that we would approve.
Yes.
And that would go, okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstained? Okay, that one passes.
Perfect. And I think you have copies of the LA5 that you would vote on and then sign if it's approved?
So I would move to approve the Form LA5 as presented and signed tonight.
Second.
Okay, motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Okay, that also passes. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much.
so much. That was really very informative. I appreciate that.
It's a great return on that $70,000 investment.
Yes.
Sure is. If we ever see it.
Use some of that to take up those double poles.
We're all
All
going to
right.
sign one LA5?
Yes, please.
Next agenda item is liaison reports and board invites. Anyone have anything? Liaison reports? Nope.
I went to the Veterans Celebration dinner this week. I went to the noon ceremony that they had at the Senior Center, which was very well done. Kudos to Steve Simos. He did an absolutely phenomenal job presenting, as would be his baseline. He is a phenomenal individual, and the town is so very lucky to have him in our town. And then the evening one, I went to that, and again, it was absolutely awesome to see some of the veterans and the stories that were going back and forth, and it was very very well represented, and it's one of those few feel-good things as being a selectman, that makes you feel good by going and doing it. So it was a wonderful time.
Thanks for going, Brendan. I mean, I think it's important that we honor our veterans, and I'm glad you were able to attend. And
I have one thing, but
Go ahead.
I just did also want to say thank you to the Scouting for Food program that happened over the weekend, and Project Just Because seemed very appreciative of all the canned goods and supplies they were able to get. So thanks for everyone who organized and donated.
That's
And
awesome.
all the scouts that were out there, it's awesome. Also, just to make a point that if anybody missed it, there's certainly an opportunity to donate directly to Project Just Because, and they would be very appreciative, and there's a lot of families that count on that support over the year. So it's a nice way to send your resources if you can.
Thank you. All right, future agenda items. Anyone have any? Not for today. Okay, then I guess I'll entertain a motion.
Just a happy Thanksgiving.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right, motion been seconded. Any discussion? None. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight.
I just have one.
I don't have a...
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh, sorry. I take that back. Jill, please.
A thoughtful and happy Thanksgiving. You don't eat too much turkey.
Oh, eat it all.
And small family gatherings.